so much for sharing those stories. And so the reason for sharing stories again is to make everyone know how different our schools are, even though we are thought of under that collective umbrella of private or independent schools in Jamaica. One in Kingston, one in Mandeville, one in Ocho Rios, all with very different stories, very different ways of being. So we're going to go back to Dr. Wilson. And Dr. Wilson, one of the first things we want you to speak to for us is tell us a little bit why private education? Why do we need private education in Jamaica? What is its relevance? And why can we absolutely not do without it?
Okay, that's a very good question. I could begin with experience. My own children attended a private school, the one that I am now principal of. And yes, and they had to go on to high school. And I observed by the time they got to high school that they were not so dependent on teachers. They would take the curriculum guide. They had learned how to learn. So that is my first point. I think in private schools, based on my experience over the years, children learn how to learn. So they become independent learners. The other thing I noticed is that I've noticed over the years is that there is a strong focus on character education, which I think is more wholesome if you are trying to create, I want to call it, a human being who will take his or her place in society and really make a positive impact. That person will have not only a good academic base, but good values that every human being should have to be a wholesome human being. I also recognize that there are many children who cannot learn in the larger classes. And they need, as Mr. Graham said, that differentiated approach to their learning. In the public system, for example, children are moved along chronologically. So if you reach the age of grade 1, then you're moved on to grade 1, and there's not necessarily that attention to the fact that you still need to be taught at the kindergarten level because you haven't reached that reading level, for example. So the kind of differentiated attention that is paid to each child because of the smaller learning groups, and also the fact that they come to us because they believe that we can help in that particular way, and we do that differentiated learning. I think that that is important. One last point, I know the time is going, is that you have children who have special education needs. They will not be able to function in a regular classroom, and we will take the time out to help those children as well.
It's admirable what we do. The inclusion is great in our independent schools, and children have to go to school.
I'm not hearing Anna.
With us in this conversation, we have a parent from the Northgate High School. We have Mr. Sheldon Brown, and I would like to welcome him to the conversation as he shares with us why he chose private school for his child.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. You kind of chipped out just before you mentioned my name. To answer that question, I'll take it in twofold because my children are now in high school. So they would have gone to private school at the primary level as well, at the prep school level. At that level, it was chalk to cheese. I needed the foundation for my children. I went to the public school as a child growing up. And it was while dealing with my children going through private school that I realized how much I missed. You know, how much I didn't receive. You know, so it was my wife and I had decided from day one that our children, because that attention that is given in the private school, that intimate relationship that exists based on sheer numbers, it's easier for us to relate at that level with all the teachers. All the teachers knew me, all the teachers knew my wife, all the teachers knew my children. So it was a relationship, and it allowed and it facilitated the growth and the development of our children at the primary level. So the foundation, because a building is as strong or as weak as its foundation. A person is the same thing. So the foundation in education is not set properly. That child will be not function as well at the secondary level as he or she should. At the secondary level now, I am affiliated with Northgate High School, and as the point that I've said, I believe in what we are doing, and I've been around long enough to see bright people, many bright people in our parliaments, everywhere. But do I want my children to be like that? And the answer is simply no. So at this level, the secondary level, it's about the total man, the person being built, separate and apart from the maths, the English, and the mental ability, as I would call it. It's about the man being built. And the character development, as Dr. Wilson also mentioned, that's a big part of Northgate High School, a big pull for me, in terms of building the children's character. And those are things that I see happening in Northgate High School. And I speak specific, sorry if I sound kind of toward Northgate, but that's where my children are. So I can speak to where my children are. And that's what I see there. And I encourage anybody, if they can, to get their children involved in private school. And I close by saying, when COVID hit Jamaica, my wife and I were not on the island. Imagine that you're off the island and school closed down. But the next day the children were in school. They didn't miss a beat. You know, so I feel safe. It provides that area of safety and that avenue of safety for me and my children, my family. And that's what the private high school, as it relates to Northgate High School, gives to us. And we're very comfortable with that. So I don't believe I would have received that in the public school system. And I have to really appreciate that.
Brown, and I'm sure many of the parents who have their children in private high schools who do maintain that sense of so strong and still that sense of family would say the very same things that you are saying. Their stories are quite similar. It's a special place to be a member of a private independent school.
Remember, you can tweet me, DJ Miller, JA. News at 6, sports at 6:40.
Private schools and in schools in general, but certainly in private schools that are businesses that come from different channels. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts and your knowledge on the funding of private schools.
I wasn't hearing you clearly, Anna, so let me just reiterate what I think I heard, that you'd like me to talk a little bit about the funding for private schools. And this is where it can get a little sticky. There are many different private schools. The business model, by and large, of private schools is based on tuition fees as the major, and for some schools, the only source of income. But there are schools who in addition to tuition fees, augment their income by other streams, such as their tuck shop, their PTA support through fundraisers, and also extracurricular activities. It is also part of the funding arrangement that they negotiate with teachers, compensation packages that may not be the same as the ministry's compensation package. And so all of that helps to fund the schools. Now, we can't forget about the church as well. The churches contribute significantly to a number of our schools. And I'm pretty sure that is appreciated, and it allows them to discount the fees to parents where they have that kind of support from their churches.
Great, that is good sharing. After anything from our other panelists on that topic as we go? Mr. Graham?
Well, as Dr. Faithlin Wilson said, schools really do have unique opportunities to generate revenue. I've discovered that what we are finding now is that schools are becoming very creative in identifying their revenue sources, and we have become quite aggressive in managing receivables, because that is an important aspect of ensuring that our schools remain viable and operational. And so a number of schools have had to be extremely creative and innovative in ensuring that all the fees that are out and that can be collected as part of our revenue is done in a way where there is respect for the parent and the school's administration as well. So nobody is embarrassed.
And you have to manage it well and discreetly.
Yes.
For sure. So Wes,
Oh.
yes, as you
Yes.
join the
Yes.
to our community about the product that private schools offer. Some here need no converting. Some of us can use some informing. Tell us about the typical private school offer. How does it compare in terms of that offering to public schools?
Okay. It's sort of getting in and out, but I think I get most of your question. You are asking me about the offerings of private schools. And
Yes.
I would like to really widen the minds of the audience as to the types of private schools which exist in Jamaica, because most persons, when you say private schools, they think firstly of prep schools, because they are the most numerous, and then they will squeeze in some high schools there as well. But there are all types of private schools in Jamaica. We have the traditional prep schools, we got the high schools, we got nursing schools, we got hospitality schools, we got sporting academies, we got aviation schools, we got Bible schools, beauty schools, okay, you name it. Okay, and they're all private enterprise. Okay, so so the private education sector is a large sector in Jamaica, and in most instances, you know, they go unnoticed, but they are there because I think a lot of times we take them for granted. In most instances, our prep and high school students, they write the same national exams as the public sector schools will do at the both primary and secondary schools levels. Some schools engage curriculum from overseas, okay? Apart from the normal national exams like PEP and CXC and CSEC and City and Guilds, etc. Okay, but there are a variety of exams that private schools present. But apart from the academic process, you know, the inter-school activities can be very creative. Well, we all know that since COVID-19, life has changed. Okay, so we are now catching our breath and reinventing ourselves in that regard. COVID was just a few months away. Okay, and so we have to reinvent our inter-school interactions. But before that, the prep schools had a strong sporting interaction between them. A lot of our schools also participate in the TVJ school challenges, and you have a lot of them going to the JCDC festivals and other type of activities. So private schools, they always have the opportunity to shape a program, okay? And decisions are made quickly, because a lot of times the principal is the owner of the school. Okay, so they don't have to go to a regional director who have to talk to a CEO who have to talk to the minister and all of that. Okay, a principal can go overnight and say, listen, this is the trend I'm seeing inside of my class. Let's get a program going. And by next week, you have a new program running inside of that school. I really like the flexibility and the creativity which comes in how private school leaders can shape their program. So many parents can find a school to fit the unique needs of his or her child. Instead of going to, I find most the public sector is a one-size-fits-all approach. And the assumption is made that all children learn the same way, which is not true. So you can come into the private sector and look around and you realize your child, you know, has a certain personality. This is what they need. And this is what makes private schools very powerful.
Just make their room would do it. Graham, tell us some more. Are you hearing me?
We're
Mr.
hearing.
Graham?
You're fading in and out, Anna.
I'm going to try to work on that when Christopher starts to speak. Christopher, tell us a little more about just the accountability that private schools have in that manner versus a public school. About the level of accountability that private school owners, principals like yourself have to manage daily.
Okay, well, there are many levels of accountability when it comes to the management and operation of private schools. The independent schools unit was set up with two primary responsibilities: registration and regulation. So private schools are not really allowed to do just about anything, because we do have a regulator, which is the independent schools unit, which is positioned within the Ministry of Education, and the responsibility is to ensure that all schools are providing quality education for persons, as in there would be regulation in any other sector. There is regulation certainly within private schools. I believe when parents are required to pay tuition for students, and contrary to what many persons think, we have average parents who really, in a number of private schools, there are quite a number of parents who really have to make serious sacrifices to send their children to private schools or for them to access that kind of education. And as a result, as school leaders, it is important that accountability is paramount, because you want to make sure that the product and the services that are being offered are of a particular level, that even when your cohort of students move on, there are others to come, because we do understand that word of mouth is one of the most powerful marketing tools nowadays. But at the same time, it means that we have to put systems in place. The independent schools unit, quite frankly, has the ability to deregister schools if they are not aligned to the values and principles that are set out in the Education Act and the document that governs the operation of private schools. So what we find is that even as private schools, we can be independent. Pastor Boyne spoke specifically to that, how quickly we can get programs going without having to go through tons of approvals and red tape. We can look at some of the needs of our students, but at the same time, whatever we do, we have to make sure that we are accountable to our parents and to the regulators who ensure that we are doing what we say we are going to do. And in a way, what it does, it protects our parents, because to ensure that there is a body there monitoring and supervising what you're doing, you as the leader or the body of individuals responsible for overseeing the operation of the school, whether it's a board, whether it's the proprietor, you have to make sure that whatever it is we say that we are going to offer, we offer and we do it well. Because in this case, people are making tremendous sacrifices to send their children to this kind of learning space, to this kind of space of interaction where we expect only the best.
Yes, that is so true. You know, private school parents do have the opportunity, as I've heard a school leader say recently, to vote with their feet, you know, and if it's not working for them, they do have the every will and every way to get up and go somewhere else and go to another school. And that sometimes is one of the challenges that we face as leaders in private school. And again, the sacrifice parents make is real. You know, and that's regardless of the type of private school that that parents are trying to access, or that they've found fits the needs of their children. Thank you for that, Mr. Graham. That's so profound. And then the next thing that we wanted you to take a little look at for us and share with our viewees this evening would be, tell us a little bit, as you are one of the private schools that has opened for face-to-face school in this time of COVID. It's almost tempting to try to say post-COVID, but it's absolutely not post-COVID. Tell us a little bit about some of the impact of COVID on your school, the impact of COVID a little more generally on the independent schools as you are in the knowing, so that we can help some to move forward in their decision making and others just to understand where we are as a group.
Okay, schools were ordered closed on March 12th. And that included the private schools. A number of us as private school operators and leaders felt the pinch because our schools, the operation of our schools focus also on activities that takes place. So for example, Dr. Wilson spoke to extracurricular activities. That's a revenue stream for a number of schools, our canteens, tuck shop, etc. So we were affected that way. And almost immediately, with no blueprint for operation, we had to switch to online learning. And Jamaica is a third world country. You know, we can't overlook that fact. One of the questions that begs to be asked is if we were well prepared for online learning. And the question is not necessarily we were not seeing a build out of our telecommunications infrastructure. So a lot of things started to happen that suggested to us that we were not necessarily ready, but this teaching and learning had to continue. And so for us, as with most other private schools, we had to move immediately to online learning. And for a lot of us, it was a humbling experience, because for some of us, we had to be learning. So it's like you're building the plane as the plane is flying. And so that was particularly difficult for a lot of us because we are operating within a space where we were not necessarily ready for online, but we had to take it on. Certainly at Phoenix Academy and several other private schools, we looked at it in three ways. We know that we had to have some kind of learning management system for us. At the time, we chose easyclass.com, and that crashed on us, and we had to switch to Google Classroom. We also had to have some video conferencing tool, whether it be Zoom, Microsoft Teams. For now, it's Google Meet seems to be quite popular. And then we added subscription-based websites. So for us, we try to engage our students in a meaningful way, but we did not want to have them in front of this screen every single day. So that was difficult for us. For a number of other schools, it was even more so difficult because parents were advocating that fees for online should be less. But the school leaders who are present can tell you that online learning really takes quite a bit of preparation and resources that can be quite costly to the institution. So for us, that was an issue. The unique position also of my institution was that we had to relocate during COVID. And so that was a major challenge for us. But what it did, it gave us an opportunity when we were refurbishing our new property to apply all the protocols and implement the protocols as was sent to us by the Ministry of Education. So it made it a little bit easier, but it was a major challenge because it was a major expense for us at a time when our revenue basically had dried up. So when a number of schools resumed online teaching and learning in September, or those who did face-to-face or who commenced with face-to-face, you would find that for 7 months, they really didn't have consistent revenue, and that would have been a major challenge for all schools. I don't know of any business that could literally be closed for that long and still reopen and continue to be serving. And for a number of the schools, it suggests that they have the kind of business resilience that is important. One of the things I share with my co-presenters, Dr. Wilson and Pastor Boyens, is that my two sons attend Phoenix. And so when I took the decision that it would be important for us to resume face-to-face, it's because, one, I operate an institution where the students require extra attention and support. And we could not give that support via online for the majority of our students. We had also asked our parents to indicate whether they were interested in online face-to-face or a blended teaching and learning modality where they would come into school on some days and then on other days they would be at home. And we did that to ensure that our classroom sizes would be extremely small, probably between 4 to 6 students, where some would be online and some would be at home. And what we did, we simply bought cell phones and tripods. So we set up the cell phones and the tripods in the classroom where it would be directed at the teacher and the whiteboard, and teaching and learning will take place, but the students at home would not be seeing the other students. They will only be looking at the board and the instruction that will be taking place. And we found that to be very important. Another quick thing is that I had to take the decision. One of my sons, he has serious respiratory issues, and I had to take the decision and ensure that he was at school for face-to-face, because that's one of the things you have to do. If you're saying to parents, I'm asking you to send your children out, if you are able to, because some parents still have not been able to do that. And if you're able to do that, I am going to lead by example and say, well, once the protocols are in place, I trust the system enough that my child can safely go out to school and he can learn in a meaningful and interactive way. And so far, we have opened our doors in September, and everything has been going reasonably well for us. And so that's one of the things that we really need to be looking at in terms of how we position ourselves. It may not be something that all private schools can do, but for the schools that can, you know, as an organization and from one school leader to the next, we encourage those who can to do that. And so for us, survival during COVID was highly contingent on us being able to open our doors face to face, primarily because we wanted to reach those students who really needed that individualized and differentiated instruction, which our school is known for, and would not be possible via the online platform.
Right. That's so true, Dr. Graham. And I know that there are schools, again, under the JISA umbrella, who have benefited from actually being closed and pivoted to a stronger online learning space, which has suited their school community. But just being in that awareness of making the best decision for your school community and making it quickly is just so important for the leaders. And keeping your community intact, your school community intact, and staying in communication with them. Thank you for that. So Pastor Wes, we want to move from the now. Mr. Graham has spoken to us a bit about where we are now, and speak a little bit about what we perceive our needs and our space as private schools, as JISA, an organization. Where do we need to go? What does our future look like? What do we need to do?
The big C word, collaboration, collaboration, collaboration.
I think COVID has given us that gift.
COVID has imposed it, and I was just thinking before you asked, Peter, that the wise men of the forecasters have indicated that they don't see the planet recovering from the impact of COVID for at least by 2025. It may take more time, and they are just guessing. But based on what they can see right now, and any individual or entity who tries to function by his or herself or by themselves, they will suffer. It's only schools who have discovered the power of collaboration will survive. When I was just a president, I had my number one complaint was like too many private school leaders were abusing the word private. You know, they took it too far. They were so private, they couldn't. You know, the walls were so high around the school. We had to take down some of those walls because the COVID-19, one of the COVID-19 implications is economic constraints. Okay, and everybody will feel it. Our parents' salaries will get smaller. Okay, So we have to find a way to collaborate and get along more tightly as we move forward to walk through this crisis. Because we all share a common goal, nation building. Yes, there is a level of competition between schools, but at the end of the day, parents are the one who decides where their children will go. But we have to swallow our pride and begin to share resources. We have to learn to maybe share the same teachers, share the same science lab, share the same music band. I mean, in Ochiris where I live, you can stand up where I function, my office is there. Okay? You can take 5 minutes drive from one school to the next. It's not more than 5 minutes to a number of schools. Okay, but everybody, for example, at the September morning, everybody will be paying somebody to come and do staff orientation. Why can't we have the same presenter and split the bill in 6? And we all connect online. Okay, so collaboration. The big private schools must have an open mind because, you know, it's a thin line between being big and being small. I remember years ago, there are 2 schools in Kingston, I won't call the name. Years ago, the small one went to the big one and said, let's collaborate. Okay, because we are a small school, we can't afford everything. And the big school said no. 20 years later, the big school is no more and the small school is a big school. Now, 2 of them could have been surviving today.
Yes.
Okay, because I have a very selfish reason why I want all private schools to succeed.
Share with us.
Okay, so you give me permission to be selfish. I have 3 children, I call them my treasures. They might get married to somebody from your school. So I want your school to be successful and to bring up excellent kids because my future daughter-in-law and my 2 son-in-laws might be at ASK or they might be at, one of these schools I don't know. So I don't want, after I've made all that investment in my 3 children, they get married to, you know what I'm talking about. So that is very important. And I think the response that we want from the government and the private sector in terms of support, it can only be accomplished through collaboration when we can speak with one voice. So to me, it will benefit all schools to collaborate more and to support, come into JISA and add your effort to what we are seeing. Collaboration between all the stakeholders, between parent groups, okay? I want to see PTAs working together. Okay, this parent group and this parent group coming together and doing things together. Okay, it takes a community to build a school. Just like the old African proverb said, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a community to build a school. And most of our private schools cannot afford to charge a school fee that covers the total cost to run that particular school in most areas in Jamaica because of the economic realities which exist in those areas. Okay, so the school now have to have a community around it who can supplement the income of the school in some way or the other. I, as a parent, I can tell you, my wife and I, we made a lot of sacrifice to send our children to private schools. We did it out of vocation for many, many, many years because we wanted our children to be in a private school context. While my public school parents were going to jazz festival and reggae sunsplash, we were home watching TV. Why? Because we wanted our children to attend a private school. Okay, so I would prefer as a parent, I'm speaking as a parent now, to support a school that is doing some sort of creative fundraiser than to be asked to find all of that money to pay the full extent of the school fee that it really costs to support a child. So I'm saying the parents now have to come on board, especially inside of I wouldn't call it post-COVID, mid-COVID, the mid-COVID situation that we have found ourselves in. I think all of the stakeholders of the school have to gather around our private schools and say, let's see how we can keep this going, because if the principal ramps up his school fee to the real cost, many of the parents will have to say goodbye, and that will be the end of the school. So we have to find new ways of collaboration. To me, that's a big, big issue for the private school community, not just the school alone. parents, teachers, neighboring schools. We have to find a way to collaborate. Without collaboration, I do not see a future for many of our schools.
Well, Pastor Wes, this has been your story for as long as I have known you, and you're passionate about sharing that. And I do really hope that sooner rather than later, as private school leaders, we have had to come together and figure out many of our stories and our way forward. Hopefully our parents will join us on the journey, just as you have requested, and you keep charging that cause, and the students as well. That we look at ourselves as a private school community. We look at ourselves as an invaluable resource that we are to our nation, right? And as we do play a very, very essential role in the education of our nation's children. One of the next things we want to do is to share through story on one of our success stories from private schools. There is also a poll taking place. Do take a minute to complete the poll as we look into getting the video of our success story up and showing. Ms. Mackenzie, will we get Mrs. Mackenzie, is the video going to come, or shall we speak a little more knowingly about some of the nation builders that we have had out of our private schools? No video. Okay, as we learn to flex as school leaders. So just to bring to your mind, we've had some of our private school leaders sharing with us about some of people you may know, names and titles of people you may know who have come out of our independent school system, a school system that we should be most proud of, that holds its place in a very special way in Jamaica. We have people like Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, who went to Mona Prep. We do have people, I went to Mona Prep. We have people like Chris Zaka, Yandy Phillips, Kathy Levy, all who went to Mona Prep. We have out of Morris Nib Preparatory, and this is just information that our school leaders have shared, as I said, that I read live. We have Dr. Trevor Monroe, Professor Errol Morrison, Harry Belafonte, Carol Guntley Brady. We remember Carol Guntley. We have Rhodes Scholar. My brother was a Rhodes Scholar that went to Mona Prep as well, Miss Blanchard. Douglas Orain from Wolmer's Prep. We have Adam Cummings, who is an athlete, a Jamaican national athlete. We have out of Liberty Academy, Teensy and Gianna Lewis, who are local national table tennis champions. Nicholas Gordon Somas, who is a participant in the Carifta Games. The private schools are well represented in those Carifta Games all the time. We have Mark Golding, who is alumni of the Mona Preparatory School again. We have Michael Sean Harris of Edna Manley, who is that from Vaz, Mrs. Bisnot, I see. Vaz Prep alum. Sean Fraser of football fame, and of course, Alia Atkinson, our national swimming athlete. Also, Simon Tomlinson coming out of Vaz Prep. There is no shortage of names, I'm sure. Dr. Patrice Grandison from Gordon's Memorial Prep. You know, all these people have made their mark, had their foundation, have made their mark in our nation and have had their foundation at private schools in Jamaica. So we thank you for sharing with us in this moment. We have just about run the gamut of our time. And I want to end by just saying what an opportunity it is to upgrade our positivity amid the upheaval and seek out opportunity. And that's certainly the way we need to look at this time and moving forward. We cannot accomplish all that we need to do without working together, for sure. I want to thank all who have attended, all of our participants, all of our panelists who took the time out to share with us in this session. And I do want to go through a quick reminder of the remainder of events that we will have in this JISA week. So tomorrow we do have another webinar with JISA members about pivoting with agility. I think to confirm, to be confirmed, we'll be meeting on CVM on Sunrise tomorrow morning. Also tomorrow we have the Region 1. I think we'll wrap up their donations where we have a collection drive happening in Region 1, taking place in Region 1, where we are learning to dig deep and find that we always have something to give, even in hard times, to donate to the missionaries of the poor. On Wednesday, November 11, JISA partners will have another webinar, yet another webinar, speaking about building relationships in JISA and outside of, in order to help JISA schools along. Wednesday afternoon, there is also a webinar about serving special needs children and families in the virtual classroom, a cause that is dear to my heart in many ways. Genesis Academy, shall I give you your special shout out? My son went to Genesis Academy, proud alum of Genesis Academy. On Thursday, there's a nationwide interview. This is to be confirmed. Surely on Thursday, it should be happening. We have tributes from our partners in a supplement in the newspaper. And then on Friday, we should have a JISA documentary being shared on JIS PBC. And I know that there are many people working behind the scenes to make all of these bits and bobs possible for a celebration that is JISA week. To round off the week of activities, we will have a wine with me. Is that what it is, Miss Mackenzie? So it is our lime. I think the title is so appropriate and I look forward to being there. Wine with me, wine holding so many different connotations in this title on Saturday evening as we wrap up what will truly be a fantastic JISA week, one where we have shown that we're resilient and we show that we can pivot and we can still make it happen when we plan and we work together. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this conversation today. We look forward to seeing you in our other events for this week. Bye, everyone. Have a very good evening.
Bye, everyone.
Madam President, Mr. Vice President, Pastor Wesley, thank you so much for your contributions to the conversation.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.